and obviously I'm here today to report on what we do in Hackney in relation to CO awareness and our findings. About 18 months ago we started installing CO detectors on our appliances that we were installing, which was mainly boilers. We were surprised by the number of calls we received where the alarms were going off. We then sent our inspectors on a training course for carrying out investigations when the alarms were activated. Since then, in February this year, we purchased 23,000 CO detectors and we started installing them in all of our properties when the gas safety inspection was carried out.
Fire from the house next door, leaking fumes through to the house I was present in. And it seems as prevalent in males initially that you suffer a stroke type symptoms. At the age of 43, suffered 2 strokes, and it wasn't until council knocked on the doors and tested all the houses, the smoke test, they can see that the room had filled up. I was a fit 43-year-old Welsh rugby union referee, and yeah, stroke was in my family, but it doesn't not why it happened. Why it happened was carbon monoxide. But you've got to live with all the different effects, from having learning disabilities and physical disabilities now for the rest of my life.
And none was more poignant than when I stood in the court in Liverpool, when I was a Mackenzie friend for Lynn, and I actually heard that the solicitor representing Craig had agreed with the opposing counsel that CO poisoning did not cause brain damage. As a result of that, Craig received a pittance of £1,250 for what I believe will be a lifetime of pain and problem. He should have been much better compensated, but he wasn't, because the system does not recognise what this poison does, nor does it recognise the extent of it.
I thought she was struggling with this, so she went back to the lounge to take her inhaler and some smelling salts. Because she was still struggling breathing, she sat by an open patio door and dozed there throughout the night. The next morning, Mum was getting up early, so she didn't disturb Dad. Dad had been poisoned by carbon monoxide at some point overnight and had died. When he was found, the cause of death was initially unknown, but there was an obvious unknown smell. Obviously CO is odourless, but it was to do with the way it had been, the flue of the boiler. My parents' house immediately became a crime scene, and after the funeral director collected Dad, we had to leave. Mum wasn't allowed back in her house for 3 days, and there was a policeman outside on constant guard. What would have been our wedding day ended up being Dad's funeral. The Health and Safety Laboratory carried out tests on all the gas appliances in my parents' house. Every single one of them had been installed and checked by the plumber who told us the boiler needed replacing. There were 3 tests done on the boiler. The first one was, it was left as it was. Tubes were placed in the bedroom, in the centre of the room where Dad was, and the boiler was switched on. The boiler quickly generated extremely high levels of carbon monoxide. After 7 minutes, the boiler was switched off. The levels that the carbon monoxide reached said severe symptoms within 1 to 2 minutes, death within 15 minutes, and there would have been 80% saturation of carbon monoxide in someone's bloodstream.
In listening for the first time to the sorts of problems that people experience when exposed to carbon monoxide poisoning, it dawned on me quite quickly during the meeting that it's something that myself and my son had been suffering from, but completely without realising it. Now, I'm relatively well educated, but had no idea. We were living in a property at the time which was a private landlord, and the property suffered from many problems, but it wasn't a gas problem in our house, it was actually an open fire, a wood-burning fire. And of course that's something that isn't covered by the laws at all, because the current checks are simply done on gas appliances. And it really hadn't occurred to me that it could possibly be the fire. And the symptoms that we were suffering, my son in particular, who was 17 at the time, in his first year of sixth form, so approaching A-level modules in January, and he was suffering from intense headaches and vomiting, which was initially put down by our GPs to migraines.
And that night he used a brand new Coleman's camping gas lamp, one of these where you attach the gas canister underneath. It's brand new, I bought it, and I'd always considered them a fire risk more than a carbon monoxide risk. And he used it that night. His friends helped him assemble it, and what actually happened was it was misassembled, which the gap that should have been at the top of the glass shade that fits over the onto the canister, there wasn't a gap there was a gap at the bottom. He hadn't assembled it right, and it worked, it appeared to work fine, and what he didn't know was that it was releasing carbon monoxide. He took it into his tent that night to just get undressed and into a sleeping bag. Wasn't even able to turn the switch off, and it was obvious that, well, it appeared that he died very, very quickly. He was on his own in the tent. Thankfully, none of the children were with him. And it took 2.5 years for the police investigation and the coroner's inquest. The inquest was the week before Christmas last year, and the narrative verdict of the jury was that he died due to the misassembly of the gas lamp and in an insufficiently ventilated tent. And I just really wanted to highlight it as another risk. It's completely different from everyone else's story here, and that's all I'd really like to say. Thank you.
And the second thing I would like to make very clear is that over the last 2 years, the majority of our victims have been made victims by registered installers, not by unregistered installers. And to address these problems, Gas Safe Register, who is the new keeper of the register, has embarked as part of their contractual obligations on an enforcement review, which has now been concluded, and the results of that enforcement review have been sent to the Health and Safety Executive. They are now in the middle of a competence review, which is probably, as far as the victims are concerned, the most important review that will be carried out. And this competence review will finish around the end of 2011. So please, let's recognise that CO poisoning is a problem that results from the improper combustion of any hydrocarbon fuel.
My last point is that whilst it's easy to call for more regulations, I do have an anxiety that regulations can give people a false sense of security, and they can think that because regulations are there, that it's okay, rather than actually no regulation is going to work 100%, and the only thing that will is actually detecting, even that's not going to be 100%, but at least putting alarms in, you do have a detection system there. So I just worry about calling for more regulation, and this government is not going to put in more regulations. I think that's a given.
I phoned British Gas, and their technical manager came out very, very fast in a couple of days, and he told me that the classification was just not to current standards, and how they tried to ignore the danger and just say that there wasn't any danger at all, really. And I didn't really know what to do, because I knew that I'd been ill, and I'd never really checked the symptoms of carbon monoxide before, but I went on the internet, and I sat there for days, writing about it and writing down my feelings and just remembering all the things that I've blocked out through being so determined to get on with my life. And I started going to meltdown, and you know, I tried to employ legal help, thinking that they'd know what steps to take to help me. So I paid a lot of money, and I didn't really get anywhere. And that's when I spoke to Lynn Griffiths on the telephone, and I wasn't getting any medical help either. They were really just trying to say that I was okay, and there was really nothing they could do to help me. And that was in December 2009. And then about March, I think it was, March or April, I telephoned Lynn, and Lynn was really, really good because straight away she believed me, and she's always believed me. And communication with Lynn has been really, really good and really, really important for me, because I think she's really saved my mental health, you know. I did go into a bit of a slump, but it only lasted for a few weeks, and I know for a fact it would have gone on for years, because, you know, that's just what victims are like, really, that's just what they do. And I said to my doctor, Lynn's a real mirror on my own symptoms. She is how I felt inside, and it really helped me come to terms with it. And I'd just like to say thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Tony, for you know, helping me with the letter writing and everything.